Hello YouTube, this is Mo from tutorialsEU and welcome to a new C# tutorial. So I was going through our Discord earlier when I came across a spam message. So after deleting the spam, a guy on our Discord said, I wish Discord had an AI feature that auto-deletes spam messages. So I decided to make a tutorial on it. We will be building a Discord bot that will be able to detect when someone sends a link. Then it will extract the link, send it to a security service that will check whether the link is safe or not. And if so, delete the message containing the link. We will be using Discord.net, which is a C# wrapper for Discord API. We have lots to do, so let's get started. So I'll be creating a new console application project and I'm gonna call it Discord anti-spam bot. And I'm going to target .NET 5. And the first thing I'm going to do is install the NuGet package for Discord.net. From the Browse tab, search for Discord, and it should be the first one on top. Select your project and click Install. Accept both messages. And now Discord.net is installed. Alright, cool. So before we start with coding, we need to create a Discord bot account. So go to discord/developer/applications and create a new application. I'm just gonna name it anti-spam bot. Click on create, go to the bot tab and click on add a bot. Now since bot cannot accept invite links, we must invite them through the OAuth 2 flow. I'm going to select the scope of this application as a bot, and then for the bot permissions I'm gonna make it an admin. Then copy the link, open it in your browser, then select the server you want to add this bot to. I already created a server called spam free server, which I'm gonna use to test this bot. Click continue and then authorize as an admin. Once you see this message, then it's all set. Now if you look at Discord, you can see my spam free server and you can see the bot that we created as a member. Of course it's offline, it will be online once we run our C# application. Alright, now back to our console application. First I need to import a few libraries. The first one is Discord and Discord.WebSocket. Then I need to create a Discord socket client that will connect to Discord. So private static Discord socket client, and I'm gonna call it client. Now since I'll be running a lot of async tasks, so I need to mark the main method as an async method, and of course it needs to return a task. And for that I need to import the system.threading.task namespace. So before I initialize my client object, I need to create a configuration object and set a number for the message cache size so that our bot would be able to read messages off Discord. So first I'm gonna create a config object, Discord socket config. And I'm gonna set the message cache size to something like 200, which should be enough. Then I'm going to use this config object to initialize my client object, and I'm gonna pass it the config we just created. Now to keep track of our bot actions, we need a method to log our data. Luckily our Discord socket client already contains an event called log, which we can subscribe to. So I'm going to create my own log method and I'll let Visual Studio generate that for me. So as you can see, our log method follows the same signature of our log event, which returns a task and takes a log message as an argument. So instead of throwing an exception directly, I'm going to CW the log message we got, and I'm gonna convert it to a string, which will contain the message and the timestamp of the log message. And then at the end, I'm gonna return task.completedTask to indicate that this task is now finished. So now I need to log in using my socket client, and I'm gonna use login async, and it takes an enum for the token type, which is of type bot. And I need to pass my token as a string over here. And this token we can get from the Discord developer portal. If we go to bot, we can see that we can copy the token from here. Now be careful, whoever have this token will be able to do actions on behalf of your bot. So you have to keep this one very safe and never share it with anybody. So to keep our code clean, I'm gonna add a new static class and I'm gonna call it env, short for environment variables. And I'm gonna make it public static. And for starters, it's gonna have a public static string, which will be my Discord bot token. Now, of course, I'm not gonna reveal my token, but you need to add your own token here. So now back to our login async method, I'm gonna pass it static string that I just created in my environment variables class. And now we are ready to start our bot. So I'm gonna call start async from our client object. Now the thing is, I don't want this console application to close once it's done. So after we start our bot, will close automatically since I don't have a pause over here. So I'm going to delay the whole main task by calling task.delay. And if I pass it -1, it means it will be delayed indefinitely, which will result in my bot running until I close it. Now let's test it out. We can see that our bot is now connecting and now it's ready. And these all the log messages we are getting from our log event over here. Now if we check our Discord, we will see that our bot is now online. Alright, so far we created a config object, then we pass it to our client, which is of type Discord socket client. Then we subscribe to the log event, and then we start our bot. Now we need to find a way to get notified whenever a message is sent in our Discord server. So for that, I'll need to subscribe to a different event called message received, which will be called whenever a message is basically received by our bot. I'm gonna call my method message received as well, and I'll let Visual Studio generate that for me as well. For now, whenever I receive a message, I'm just gonna print its content into the console. After that, I'm just going to return task.completed. Alright, let's give it a try. Now my bot is connected, and if I go to Discord and I send any message, we can see that now our messages are being logged into our console. Now let's modify our bot to make it reply to us. So whenever we receive a message, we just want to write something back. So using our socket message over here, this object contains a channel object, which is the source or the channel that the message was received from. And to any channel, I can also send a message. And my message will be something like, "What you want, bro?" And since this is an async method, I'm gonna have to await this task. Now I can actually get rid of this line, since now I am already awaiting a task over here. So let's run it. And once it's connected, I'm gonna go to Discord again. Let me put that over here so you can see it. I'm gonna type hey again. And now we can see that our bot is actually spamming the chat. And there is a reason for that, because this event will get called whenever a message is received, regardless of who sent this message. So once our bot actually replies to our message, that will also trigger another message received event. To prevent this, we need to check the sender or the author of this message that we have over here. So if the message that we received, if its author ID equals to our client current user.id, we simply want to return. Now don't judge me, this is the only scenario where I don't put brackets for an if statement, is when I'm simply just returning or exiting a method. So this way, whenever a message is received, we're gonna check the ID of the author. If this message is sent by the bot, we're gonna return. Otherwise, I'm gonna print this message over here. So let's give it another try. Now if I say hey again, the bot will only respond once. And of course, everything is now being logged into our console as well. Of course, we can play with it a bit. So let's say if the content of our message was ping, I'm going to send pong in return. So again, let's give it a try. So now if I say hey, nothing will happen, but if I say ping, the bot will reply with pong. Now don't use this as a way to program your bot commands if you want to have some sort of commands in your bot, since Discord API contains a very cool command service, so use that instead. Alright, so now that our bot can actually receive messages through the message received event, we can now have a deeper look at the messages that we are actually receiving, right? Because at the end of the day, our task is to take these messages and then look if they contain any link basically, or any URL, and then check if this link is actually spam or not. And in that case, we'll have to delete that message. So our next task is to actually find a way to extract the links from any paragraph. And for that, we're going to use regular expressions or a regex. So first I'm going to create a regex object. I'm gonna call it my regex, and it will be a new regex. And of course I need to add the regular expression namespace, which exists in system.text.regular expressions. Now we need to pass a few things to our regex constructor. The first thing is our pattern, which is going to present any link pattern basically. So I found this regular expression on Stack Overflow, which I'm going to use. And it's pretty simple. It will basically look for a link between any set of words. That's why we have the /b. So it will look for any string that starts with HTTPS, and the S here is optional. That's why we have the question mark followed by a colon, double slash, or double forward slash, or www dot followed by any number of non-white space characters. That's why we have the S here, and the plus indicates that it's one or more non-white space characters. Of course, this part of the bot can be improved, which I'll leave it to you, because I've seen some links that starts with something other than HTTP or HTTPS or www. Next, I'm gonna pass my regex settings, let's say. So the first regex option is going to be compiled so that our regex will be actually part of our assembly, which will increase the speed of our application, because keep in mind that we will be doing a lot of stuff within one message received event, and there could be like tens per second if we have a very active Discord server. And then I'm gonna add another regex option to ignore the case, which means it doesn't matter if our link contains either capital or small characters. Now we could use regex.isMatch like so, and then of course we can give it the pattern directly and our input message. But this will give us a boolean that says, okay, this message contains our pattern. But that's not what we want to do. We actually want to store our strings or our links in an array or a list so that we can pass them to a service that will check if they are malicious or not. So in a for each loop, I will go through each match in my regex object. So I'm gonna use the matches, and here we can see that match will return one match, but matches will return a match collection, since a message could actually contain more than one link. So we want our bot to be smart, and I'll pass it the content of the message that we actually received. So just to avoid a typecast, I'm gonna change that to a match. And for now, I just want to let the bot send the link back to the chat. So await args.channel.send message async, and I'm gonna pass it the match.value. And let me just add a string over here that says link found. All right, let's try it out. Let's wait for our bot to connect. And once it's ready, let's go back to Discord and let's say, hey, of course, nothing will happen. Now let's say, hey, www.google.com. And the bot will reply with link found, followed by the link. I missed an E, but it doesn't really matter. Of course, a spam message could be of the following form, something like get free Discord Nitro at https and let's say this code, because usually they mispronounce it because they can't have the same domain name, .net/free nitro, and let's say get it now. Now if we send this message, we will only get our link because of the regular expression that we used. Alright, so now that our link extraction is working perfectly, all is left is to send it to the service I told you about to check whether the link is malicious or not.
Quick pause. In this video, you'll learn something about C#. And if you want to learn everything there is to know that you need for the fundamentals and to become a real C# developer, then definitely check out my C# masterclass, in which you're going to learn all of the things you need to know about C#. So you're going to learn how to do the basics, how to use object-oriented programming, how to use WPF in order to create your own user interfaces, how to use databases, how to use LINQ, how to create your own games using Unity, and a lot more. So if you want to become a real C# developer, definitely check out the link in the description below.
So to find out whether a link is malicious or not, I'm going to use this service called IP Quality, and they basically have an API where you send it a link and it will give you a score for it and a bunch of other information like the category of the website, its IP, is it spam, does it contain malicious files or exe files, etc. Of course, you could use any other service that you like, for example Google Safe Browsing, but for the sake of this tutorial, this service is quite good enough. So first you need to register or log in if you already have an account. I'm going to log into mine. Once you are logged in, it will redirect you to the dashboard. And they offer a bunch of other services as well, like an email verification API, a device fingerprint tracking service, phone number validation API to check whether a number is actually real or is it a Google number. And this is the service that I'm more interested in, which is called malicious URL scanner API. So if you go to the documentation, we can see that this API provides a phishing detection, malicious scanning, park domain detection, filter email spamming domains, abusive domains, etc. And here we can see an example on how to use this API in PHP. Of course, we're going to do the same but in C#. So when we call this API, we'll need to give it a key and a URL, for example google.com, and we'll need to pass it a strictness value or a strictness variable, and this determines how strict should the scoring of this URL be. So if you want maximum security, you should put, here it says between 0 and 2, so you should pass it 2. If you want your bot to be very strict when it comes to evaluating a URL. And down here you can see an example of a successful response in JSON. So here we have a variable that says is it unsafe, which is a boolean. If unsafe is false, it means that the link is safe, and it will give you a bunch of other information, as we said, the domain, the IP address, the server, the page size, and then other values for other scores. Is it a parking URL? Is it a spamming URL? Does it contain malware? Is it a phishing URL, etc. For example, if you want your bot to also block any adult content as well, so that's also an option. So maybe the link is not malicious, it's a +18 website, so maybe you want to have a kids-friendly Discord server. So you could use this service to actually prevent anybody from sending these kinds of websites. The only information that we are interested in is this one, which determines whether the link is safe or not. But we will be getting all these data so that in case you want to actually extend on the spot yourself, it will be easier for you. So here you can see an example on how to call this API. So this part is actually, let me zoom in a bit. So this part is the actual API URL. And here we chose that we want to use JSON instead of XML, for example, as for our response. And then /URL followed by our key, which we can get from the dashboard. So this is going to be our key. And then followed by our website. Now, since we are actually passing a URL as a variable, as an embedded variable in a URL, we need to replace the colon with %3a and the slash with %2f. And that's why you have two of them, because we have colon // So this is a thing that we'll have to pay attention to when we are programming this part. Of course, this URL is going to be the URL that we extracted from our Discord message or on our message received event, and the rest is going to be the same. Of course, this part is going to be different for you, and you can find it over here. Once you log in, this will be your own key. This is my key, for example. So I'm going to copy this part over here to use it later in our code. So first, to make a post request, we need an HTTP client. So I'm going to define a new HTTP client object, and I'm going to call it HTTP client, and it will be a new HTTP client. And for that, I need to add the HTTP client that exists in the system.net.http namespace, and HTTP, not HTTPS. So after that, I need to prepare the list of variables that I need to pass along the post request that we've seen in the documentation, like the strictness level, for example. So this list of data is going to be in the form of a dictionary. So I'm just going to define a new dictionaries, and I'm going to call it post request values or variables, and it's going to be a new dictionary of type string for the key and value. And of course, I need to also add the collections generic namespace. And the first key value pair is going to be the strictness. For the speed, if you read the documentation, it also requires you to add how fast you want your evaluation to be. I'm going to select it as fast, and this is a boolean, so it's going to be true, and then a semicolon at the end. So as I said, I'll be passing these values using my HTTP client when I'm making a post request to the IP Score API. And of course, we can't just pass it like that, so I need to bake it into a URL content using a class called form URL encoded content, and I'm gonna pass it my post request values. So now I have my content ready. The last thing that I have to prepare is the link or the URL that I'll be sending. And of course, the URL is inside of my match object over here. So I'm going to prepare my URL and send it inside of the for each loop. So I'm going to define a new string, and I'm gonna call it URL, and it will be my match dot value. Now, the thing is that, as we discussed, I need to replace any colon or / with %3a and %2f. So I'm going to replace that over here. And first I'm going to do that for the colon, and I will replace it with %3a. Now the replace method will return a new string that contains the string with the replaced value. So I will also replace that as well. To do the replacement for the /, so I want to replace any / with %2f. So here we are taking from our match object that we got from our content. So the match is actually our extracted link or extracted values. So I'm taking this value and I'm replacing every column with this value, and then I'm taking the result string and I'm also replacing in that every / with %2f as well. And finally, I'm storing it inside our URL string. And this URL string will be the URL that I'll be passing to the API over here. Alright, so next step is to actually make the post request. So I'm going to define a new HTTP response message object, and I'm gonna call it response, and it's going to be the response that I will get from my post request. So I will use my HTTP client.post async, and since it's an async method, I'll need to await that. And then I'm gonna give it the URL that I copied earlier, of course minus the link that we want to evaluate, because that's gonna be changing. So, and then I'm gonna concatenate this string with my URL string that I have evaluated over here. And finally, I'm gonna pass it my content, which is the dictionary that we prepared earlier. Next, I need to actually read the string or data that I got in my response. So I'm going to define a new string and I'm gonna call it response string. And I'll use a method called read as string async from my response.content. And let me fix the spelling over here to response. And it's a good practice to always test every bit of code that you add. So for now, I'm just gonna write my response string into the console just to see if it's working. So now let's give it a try. I'm going to run my bot. And then once it's connected, I'm going back to Discord and I'll send this message back again. And here we can see the response that I'm getting from the API. It says the message was successful, and then the unsafe value or unsafe boolean, it says false, which means this link is safe. Well, since it's actually something that I made up, actually it's not a real spam link. But anyway, so the next step would be to actually extract this unsafe value from our response string and then make a simple if statement. If the unsafe is true, then I will have to just delete the message. So next I need to parse this response string into, now if you look at our dependencies over here, if we look at the packages, discord.net and then discord.net rest, we can see that we have a version of Newtonsoft.json already included in this Discord.net package. So we didn't have to actually install the Newtonsoft.json NuGet package again. A quick way to actually generate a C# class out of this JSON response is to use a tool that I'm going to show you in a bit. So let me actually run the bot again. And once it's connected, I'll send the message again. And here I'm just going to copy my response and I'm going to search for a tool called JSON to C#. Here it is. And I'm going to just paste my response over here and that's going to convert my JSON response into C# classes basically that I can use directly. So I'm going to copy these classes over here. Let me stop the application. And I'm gonna put them at the bottom of my main file. Of course, it's always better to put them in their separate files for the sake of simplicity. I'm just gonna put them over here. The main name of my type is gonna be root, and it's gonna contain another class called domain age, which also contains a bunch of other data related to the timestamp. As we said, I'm only concerned with this value over here, which is called unsafe. As you can see, there is something new here. This starts with an at. And the reason why we need an at over here is because the word unsafe itself is a keyword in C#. So when you are dealing with unsafe code or unmanaged code, you will see this keyword a lot. And in case we want to use a reserved keyword as a variable name, we have to add the at over here so that we can tell the compiler actually that we are defining a variable called unsafe and we are not using the unsafe keyword itself. Similarly, you can actually define a variable called string like so. Alright, so next I'm going to use Newtonsoft.json to actually deserialize my response into a C# object, and the name of my class was root, and I'm gonna use it as it is. Of course, you can change its name. And I'm gonna call it parsed response. And it's gonna be deserialized object from the JSON convert class. .deserialize object. And of course, I need to add the Newtonsoft.json namespace. Once that is here, I'm gonna use the deserialize object and I want to use the root as my type, and string is going to be the response string. Once that is done, after that, I'll have a C# object that represent my response, basically. So next, I'll need to check if my parsed response dot unsafe is true. So if it's not safe, basically, in that case, I want to do two things. First, I want to send a message back to the chat that says this message is spam. So args, which is my socket message over here that we've been using, dot channel dot send message async, and I'll say something like spam found, and after that I'll call another async method that will actually delete the message, and it's called delete async. And we will be doing this for every link that we actually find, so that if somebody sends a big paragraph with a bunch of links and one of the links is actually malicious, so I'm going to delete the message and just reply with spam found. Probably it's a good idea to also add the author ID so that I'm actually replying to the guy who sent the spam message. So I'm also going to add here the author ID, and I'm going to say something like bad boy. And since I'm actually looking at multiple links possibly within a one message, so it also makes sense to actually break out of the loop once I've deleted the message, because if a message contains 3 links, the first or the second one is malicious. Once I found that, I just send spam found, then I delete the message, and there is no need to actually go through the rest of the links, right? So after that, I'm going to break. And here is also a point or a place where you could actually improve the bot. So maybe unsafe is not good enough or not good enough indicator. So you could actually say also if it's suspicious. So if it's suspicious, or if the score of the website itself, the risk score is maybe less than 50, for example, then maybe all of these criteria could be your way to actually filter spam messages. So I actually went the extra mile and I found you a link that is actually a bit dodgy. So don't try to open this link on your own. It's just for the purpose of testing. So I'm gonna send it to the chat, but let me first run my application again. I'm gonna send that link over here, and then the bot will reply with spam found along with my ID followed by bad boy. So to actually make it look more elegant, let me actually change the author ID to the username of whoever sent the message, so we can actually shame them, because you know it's not very nice to send such links, right? Alright, so now again spam found, and it says Mo Bassem bad boy. So that's actually it for this tutorial. I'll put a link in the description for this code on GitHub. Feel free to modify it and use it as you wish. As we said, there is a lot of improvements that could be done to this bot. Maybe you could use a better exception handling, because I'm not handling that very well over here. You could improve the regex over here. Maybe you want to use a different API, for example, a different service. Maybe you want to use more criteria. Probably you want to also ban the user if you want. So let's say if someone is continuously spamming, maybe you can like add a database to your own bot, and then if somebody sends like 3 or more links at the same time that are malicious, then you could actually ban this user. So it's all up to you basically. Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed this video and you've learned something new. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and do the bell thing. And let me know if you have ideas for tutorials that you want me to make in the future. I would really love to hear from you. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one.